Hi HGTV, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Josh. Welcome to our 1926 Tudor.
We are currently in the living room. There are so many unique features to this space. We fell in love with a lot of different details, some being the plaster walls, which are difficult, but we figured out how to work with. I particularly love our gallery wall though. I'm a bit of a art hoarder, I would say, and I love filling our walls with unique pieces, whether they are from current artists, past artists, or it's just something random I found in an antique mall. The fireplace is one of the more unique pieces of the living room and honestly was a huge selling point for us when deciding to purchase this house. We walked in and immediately saw the plaster detailing. There's florals, there's actually some English roses in here, which is very connected to the 1926 kind of English Tudor style of this home as well. There is a coat of arms, which I don't actually know the story behind, but I like to believe maybe it's connected to the original family of the house, because who else puts a coat of arms unless it's your family history?
So currently we have three beings living in this home. My beautiful wife, Vanessa, myself, and our dog, Kona. He is a 14-and-a-half-year-old Shiba Inu. Fun fact is, we're only the fifth family to take possession of this home over its 100-year history. And we're so honored to be here, and we want to be great stewards for it for the foreseeable future as well.
So this is actually a really unique portion of the living room and something I love sharing with people. These are the original blueprints to this home. They were all passed from owner to owner, and we're the fifth. And so for me, the fact that 5 different families managed to keep these intact and ensure that they were passed to the next steward of the house is so incredible. Like, I get goosebumps thinking about it. We have unraveled all of them and taken a look, and it's just really cool to see the notes and the dates, and I thought it'd be really fun to make a little architectural bouquet. This is our sunroom. Again, another just like incredible selling point when we toured this house for the first time. This is not original to the 1926 plans, but this was an addition by the second owner of the house in the late 40s. They basically wanted a space where they could enjoy summer activities in the winter in Michigan. So there are ingrown garden beds here. They go to about 3 feet deep. So they grew everything from strawberries to potatoes to just general plants. And it's one of a kind. I've truly never seen anything like it. The Detroit Free Press actually did an article on this room as the first of its kind in Michigan in the early 50s. So it's really cool to have the history here. In addition to the ingrown beds, they actually had a wood burning oven. Think of like a kitchen for the winter times. It's now houses our TVs for game nights and movie nights, but there were burners here, so the family could cook food, have barbecues, things of that sort in the dead of Michigan winter, which is really cool. So we do also have a secret sink here, and this is what I was assuming they used to fill their pots with water, but it's just an old 50s sink, but it's hidden, and I thought that was so interesting. I use it now to fill water to water my plants, and it's really convenient. I can say the hot and cold doesn't quite work, but I get what I get, and I appreciate the fact that it's here. This part of the wall was one of the first projects we did when we moved into this house. It is in fact wallpaper, although we have had many guests think it was painted, and Josh hilariously tells them that he did it. He did not, but it was a labor of love getting this wallpaper up. We'd never done a project like that, so I actually had my in-laws come over and they assisted, but it just matched the room so perfectly. And this is actually the only wall in this room. Everything else in this space is windows. So we wanted something unique and interesting, and that went with the vibe of this weird all-season green room. So this room has heated concrete floors, which was really cool and actually quite a surprise to us purchasing the home. I think it stays in line with wanting to keep things warm during the winter season, but it's radiant heat under here, and that's actually how the whole house is heated, with the original boiler system and radiators. I would consider this the entry. It's kind of the welcome to both sides of the home. You go to the living room on your left and the dining on your right, but I wanted this space to also be filled with unique, interesting things. I just love the idea that when you walk into someone's home, your eye goes everywhere. I accidentally won this at auction. I have a history of purchasing things while drinking wine, and I was looking at an auction site one night, Saw this really cool bronze looking Roman soldier and thought the price was amazing. It was under $100. I assumed it was tabletop size. I also have a really bad habit of not measuring things before I purchase them. I won, and when they called me to let me know when I could pick it up, they said, make sure you have muscle with you or you have someone to bring it out of the building. And that was my first shock and awe moment to find out that this was a 4-foot, 400-pound Roman soldier. And now he greets everyone at the door. Next is going to be our dining room, which is a room I am incredibly proud of. This room was actually very controversial when we first moved in. It was a nice shade of butter yellow, and I knew I'd always wanted a color-drenched, rich space. So I decided I was going to have it painted this stunning deep green, and everyone, including my painter, thought it was an awful idea. But I had a vision, and I knew what I wanted, and I wanted a green ceiling and high gloss trim and just a moody, elevated space, and it turned out better than I imagined. This is one of my prized auction finds. I don't know the original artist, there is a signature though, but it was painted in 1913. And something about this piece just stuck out to me, whether it was her posture or the color tones, or just this insanely ornate frame. It's over 100 years old and I had to have it. So this is our powder bathroom, and I had a vision for this being that kind of swanky, moody, cool vibe that you get when you go to a cool hotel or a fun bar or restaurant. It was a blank canvas, literally gray walls, white ceiling, and not a lot of charm. So this was one of our first big DIYs. We put the wallpaper up ourselves, replaced all of the lighting and the plumbing features, and just gave it this really fun vibe. We host a lot of parties, specifically cocktail parties, and my guests always tell me how dizzy they get looking at this wallpaper. But I also really love the fact that I found a fun piece of art to place in here. So many people get creeped out by this, and that makes me love it even more. I joke that he's the bathroom attendant. So you come to a party at the Gratz house, and you have dizzy walls and a bathroom attendant. I call this the upstairs gallery wall. I mean, it's just, in my humble opinion, it's extraordinary. This was also a space where I thought wallpaper would have looked really cool, but the plaster walls just wouldn't allow me to do it without taking them down, harming the history of this home. So adding as much art as humanly possible was my go-to here. And it's not just your traditional art, your picture, your painting. It's a little bit of everything, unique pieces, different textures, taxidermy. I just wanted it to be something that I was really proud to show off. This is a vintage scarf of my grandmother's. It was like a belt scarf she used when she worked back in England, and my mom happened to still have it, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna tie it in a bow and hang it on the wall. And it's actually a really fun conversation piece. Almost everyone that comes to the house asks me about it, and I love that it has a connection to our family heritage.
So we're currently in my office. This is our latest project that just got completed. Really, really excited about it. I spent a lot of time in here as I work from home, and I wanted to have it as a space that was kind of like Hemingway-esque, if you will. Kind of from inception, I wanted to put wood paneling, wainscoting, and was looking for how to do it affordably. So there's a restaurant called Fratello's. It'd been around for 40 years. I had homecoming dinners there, prom dinners. Unfortunately, they shuttered. So the restaurant was done entirely in wainscoting and oak. We connected with the owner of the building and asked if we could just remove it because it's sitting there. We worked out a deal, and myself, my father, my brother, my brother-in-law went in one day and literally pulled out 300 square feet of the red oak, crown molding, toe, everything, and then we recut it to then match and fit in this room. So a lot of labor of love in here, but again, something we're really proud of, and I love how it lives on. This is our dedicated spare room. This space, we wanted to make sure that anytime we had guests in town, we do host a lot, that they stayed in a room that felt like a boutique hotel. So we kept the color drenching consistent from the dining room. Vanessa picked the color, she kind of designed the room Cool thing about this is my mother actually came over and helped Vanessa paint it. Really great to live by family, get that free labor. A lot of the furniture that you'll see in all of our rooms, but in this room specific, Vanessa found on Facebook Marketplace. I have the lucky task of going to pick it up and then find a way to get it into the room. Also, anything that she decides to swap out. Light fixtures, blinds, curtains. I say that facetiously. It's great, it's teamwork, and then we get to have a beautiful product like this room for people to enjoy. We are in Vanessa's office. So around the room, you'll see different cuts of picture frame molding is what it's called. So I got to learn how to do that, and you can definitely tell I learned on this room. Here's an example. This one starts lower than this one. So I definitely was learning on the appropriate measurement of the boxes and how to cut them. And then you'll see kind of in this back corner here as well, you have to use a protractor, and I hadn't used a protractor since about 6th grade. So it was a really fun experiment.
Thank you so much for visiting.
Come back anytime.
Hey HGTV, I'm Daniel Mathis. Welcome to my home in Oklahoma City. Come on in. So when you first come into my house, you definitely get a taste of what's to come right away. There's a lot of color and a lot of texture. Really the jumping off point for my foyer was the wallpaper. It caught my attention because it has an orange in it that is kind of my signature color, and I also really loved the graphic nature of the G's that are repeated. And I thought there was something fun about including sort of a higher end wallpaper with most of my thrifted finds. I kind of always say my entryway is a little bit Gucci and a little bit garage sale. So I think it's a fun nod to what's to come in the rest of the house, which is also a mixture of a lot of new and a lot of old. My home is really a reflection of my personality. It's kind of a laboratory for my dabbling in maximalism and really just playing with my collections. You know, I'm a lawyer by day, and so I have a very analytical job that doesn't always give you the opportunity to be creative, and so my creativity that I'm expressing is through my design at my house and through my collections. I have been a lifelong collector. It was something that I felt inclined to do at a very early age. So collections are incorporated all throughout my house. And then I have an interest in maximal design where I'm not afraid of color, I'm not afraid to mix patterns, I'm not afraid to mix styles, and so all of that is really exhibited throughout my house. So one of the first rooms you come to in my house off the foyer is a smaller room that I call the library. And really the starting point for this room was the green that I chose for the bookshelves. I've kind of been into this Kelly green lately. It kind of is a good color that works with a lot of my collections. This was a perfect spot for me to display a variety of things, including a collection of matte black mid-century McCoy pottery, which I have across the top of the cabinets. And then probably one of my favorite things in the shelves are these paint palettes, which are, you know, things that would ordinarily have just been thrown away, but are actually kind of beautiful on their own. And sometimes my friends come over and we'll clear off everything off the table and put food and drinks on the table. And it's also fun for games and things like that. It really makes this space really versatile, and it's super convenient since it's right off the kitchen. So when you come out of the library, you enter into this little dinette space, which is connected to my kitchen. This house was built in 1977, and so this is pretty much the exact same footprint of the kitchen and the dinette that the house has always had. And I knew I wanted to do a couple things. One, I wanted to continue the dark caviar paint that I've used as kind of a common thread throughout my house. And I also wanted to sort of experiment a little bit in here with color. And the first thing I did was find this really colorful backsplash tile. This is a terracotta tile that is made in Mexico. I got just boxes of tile in a mixture of colors. In addition to that, the tiles are all a little bit different sizes. And so my tile guy was very good at trying to get those applied, you know, as straight as we could. And so that was really the kickoff point for the color scheme in the kitchen and the dinette. And then in addition to that, I kind of wanted to mix up the cabinetry with different colors and just to kind of experiment with that and see how it worked. And so that was kind of the reason that I've got, you know, I've got lowers that are in the caviar color, and then over here uppers in this sort of pale yellow. And like I said, I'm still kind of experimenting with it to see, you know, if I live with that forever, but it definitely took on kind of a Mexican flair in here, which also inspired the collection of Mexican plates and pottery that I have in here, including the plates that I've hung kind of all the way around. So let's go check out the next space. Okay, so now we're at my office. And really the kickoff point for the design of my office was this industrial office furniture in this sort of burnt orange. This became a signature color of mine at least 25 years ago because I first bought this filing cabinet at a vintage office supply company in Dallas and just really loved the color, and then it has since become, you know, as I said, kind of a signature color. I thought this sort of light blue color on the walls would be a nice contrast to the orange, and then it also complemented some of the collections that I ended up putting in here. So as a collector, every room I have has collections, and this room's no different. I've got a couple of things in here. First, I've got a couple of cabinets of this vintage swirl pottery. This is called Namaji pottery. But probably my favorite collection in this room is this collection of vintage caricatures that I have hung on the wall. Doc and Agnes. They were the first pair that I really had ever seen, I think, and something about the rich colors and the exaggerated features, and in particular of Doc and Agnes, almost like a 1940s kind of feel aesthetic to the cartooning, and my collection just began to grow. So that's the office. Let's go check out the next space. All right, so now we're in one of my spare bathrooms to talk about probably one of my more kitschy collections and definitely one of my more controversial installations of a collection, which are these vintage tourist plates that I've essentially wallpapered this bathroom with. For years, I would see them at estate sales for 10 cents, 25 cents, and kind of resisted collecting them. And then eventually I went to an estate sale on 75% off day, and there was just a huge stack of them for really pennies, and I just couldn't resist. So I bought a whole stack, and then I went to another sale that day and they also had a stack. So the first day I had about 30 or 40 tourist plates for just dollars, and then I sort of developed an affinity for certain designs and certain colors in the plates, and so I spent a few years collecting these, and all of a sudden I realized that this extra bathroom might be the perfect place to do it. So, you know, when people ask about how this really functions, I try to remind them that, you know, it's more of an artistic expression than really anything else. I think it's a little bit aspirational for most people, and so I hope they see it and just get a little bit inspired by doing something different and something fun. Okay, so that's my plate bathroom. Let's go check out the next space. All right, so now we're in my dining room, which is a pretty nice space. Well, for me, it's the first time that I've ever had a real formal dining room, so I was really excited about getting a table that would accommodate, you know, a good number of people for a fun dinner party. And so one of the first pieces that I bought was actually this table. I liked it because of the really interesting legs, and it was also in this black color, which is very similar to the caviar that I've used as an accent color throughout the house. But really the kickoff point for the dining room was this collection of vintage portraits that are super colorful along the wall. During the pandemic, one of my Instagram friends here in Oklahoma City messaged me on Instagram and said, hey, I know you love vintage portraits. I was just at this estate sale where the gentleman was a prolific painter and he has tons of these portraits, and she sent me a few pictures. And so I immediately jumped up and ran to the estate sale and picked up about 50 of these really colorful portraits that he had painted at a studio in Oklahoma City in the 1980s. So there's just something really fun about the obvious 80s style of some of the people in the portraits themselves, but I also was really attracted to the bright colors. And so when I knew that I wanted to hang them in here, that was really the inspiration for the room color. And it's also very similar to the sort of Kelly green that I used in the library. So there's kind of a continuity throughout the house with these pops of this similar green. And so those are a main focal point in the room. Another focal point in the room is actually this chandelier over the table. So it was original to the house, and I thought that I probably would change it out because it's a little different from my usual aesthetic. But once I started furnishing the space and would take a few photographs, and I would see the chandelier kind of juxtaposed against some of my, rougher decor, I kind of liked the mixture. And so then I decided to embellish it with black lampshades, which kind of ties it in with the lamps that I have throughout the house, and to add a cord cover to kind of ground it a little bit with the black. And so I've ended up really liking it. Well, over this opening is a sign in Spanish that actually says "a full stomach, a happy heart." That was a piece that I bought many years ago at a flea market outside of Dallas, Texas, and I think the sentiment is really great, and a dining room is the perfect place for it to be. So let's go check out my pottery den. Okay, so now we're back in my den, and interestingly, this room was originally the primary suite in the house, but because it is a large space and also was the only access to the backyard, I needed to use it for a den. So we reformulated this room to do that, which included taking out a bathroom to create a new primary suite, which we hid behind some hidden bookcase doors that we'll talk about in just a minute. But as you first come into this space, it's a pretty large room, and on this wall I have this hutch. Then I've put a collection of religious art and pieces up here. And then, as I like to do throughout the house, I have a mixture of furniture. So I have things like these modern lucite chairs mixed in with a lot of vintage pieces. But really, the most important thing in this room is my pottery collection that is floor to ceiling along this wall. So when I bought the house, I was looking for a few things. In particular, I knew I needed a very big wall that could house enough shelving to accommodate this white pottery collection. So this room was really built around this collection. In particular, this collection is something that I started about 25 years ago. It's mostly mid-century American-made pottery. And if you're at all familiar with vintage American pottery, you've probably heard of the McCoy Pottery Company, which was a pretty prolific producer of this kind of pottery for many years. But there are probably 5 or 6 different makers represented in this collection. And when I first started collecting it, my rules were it has to be a satin or matte finish in this creamy white, and I wouldn't pay more than $10 for any single piece. And so those were my rules for quite a few years as I built the collection. And then once I had established a really good representation of some of the more common pieces, I started looking for rarer, and which means typically more expensive pieces, to sort of complete my collection. And that's kind of the mode that I use for all of my collections. And then also in this corner right behind me, I've got a collection of shell art. Something else that I've done that you can see in this room, which I really do throughout my house, is I like to layer rugs. And so in this room, I started with a pretty neutral striped rug as the foundation, and then I built on that with a few more colorful rugs that are turned different directions. I just think it's kind of interesting and something that I like to do throughout the house. So then as we come over to this corner of the room, we have these bookshelves, which we actually installed to conceal the opening to what became my primary suite. Because the proximity of that was a little close to the den, we wanted to come up with a way to sort of hide it. And so the way we did that was to create this sort of hidden bookshelf door. Okay, so now we're behind the hidden bookcase doors in my bedroom, so I do actually live in the house and have some spaces that function like a normal person. And so even though it's hidden behind the bookcase doors, I wanted it to be somewhat contiguous with the colors in the pottery den, and so I pulled this sort of caramelly color that I used in the background of the pottery shelves onto the walls. This room became a little bit of a repository for my sort of science collections. One of the things I like to do, since I have multiple collections around the house, is to keep similar things together. And so this room has all of those sort of teaching and educational science kind of objects, including throughout the room, I've got a number of these shadow boxes that include natural things from pieces of arrowhead and flint that I collected as a kid, and an assortment of seashells. These are all things that I mounted myself. And then one of my favorite things in this room is this collection of mushroom and fungus specimens. I think these were teaching aids, and mostly, I think they're all European, but they're just really interesting and intricate models of a variety of mushrooms that I've got displayed there. So I do have a place to sleep amongst all of my vintage and collections. All right, so let's go check out the next space. Okay, so now we're in what I call my hobby room. This is kind of a miscellaneous space that goes into my laundry room and then out to my garage. So it's kind of was a perfect space for me to, if I bring in vintage or new collectible items, that I can kind of drop them in here or use the sink in the laundry room to kind of clean them up. And so this has just become kind of a fun, miscellaneous, eclectic space. I've got in this corner a desk and kind of just an inspiration nook, I guess you could call it. The prior owner had installed these cabinets that I have painted kind of in my signature orange, which provides a lot of storage for, honestly, in most of these I've got, I think, growing collections. A lot of people will ask me if I immediately display a collection or if I grow it first before displaying it, and I tend to grow them a little bit and display them. And what was really great about this room is that it has a lot of closets with built-in shelving and storage, and so for pieces that I'm not currently displaying or things that I just don't want to use at the moment, I've been able to really store a bunch of them away in here and keep them out of my main living spaces. So that's the hobby room. Let's go check out the next space. Okay, so now we're in my main living room, which is really two distinct spaces. This room was originally two living rooms when the house was a duplex, and the prior owner merged it into one really nice sized space and vaulted the ceiling and built this fireplace and these built-in shelves. And so I've divided it into two areas with furniture. On this side, I've got a little more of my cozy or comfier furniture pieces. Some of my friends say I don't really have any seats that are comfortable, but I disagree. And then I paired these vintage pieces with a couple of additional vintage chairs that I had reupholstered in a green that kind of echoes the green from some of the other rooms in the house. But really what I like the most probably in this side of the house is my collection of Ozark tourist pottery, sometimes called Ozark roadside pottery, which is this really brightly colored swirled tourist pottery that originated in Hollister, Missouri in about 1920, 1930. I stumbled upon it at an antique mall in Tulsa, Oklahoma, And I was just really attracted to how heavy and weighty this pottery is, and also to the thickness of the glazes and the painting that he used. It's almost, you can feel the drips in some of the pieces. And finding a bird bath that is still in one piece in relatively good shape is pretty hard to do. And then in addition to this, is a birdhouse, which is kind of unusual and fun. And so I've been able to find a few of those pieces over the years, but they're, it's just a really fun pottery to collect. And because it wasn't particularly mass produced, it's a little harder to find. And so it is a collection that's a little slower to build. Let's work our way over to the other side of the living room. And on this side, I've got another sitting area, but one of the most fun parts of this side of the room is my collection of tramp art. And if you don't know what tramp art is, it's a term that's referring to a type of folk art that originated in the late 1800s and I think became really popular during the Depression, where really untrained artisans would take cast off and waste wood materials, and they applied them in a layered and graduated fashion and chipped or cut the edges to create this texture that you see in these pieces. So you see them in picture frames a lot, and so I like to get those and have mirror installed in all of them so that they kind of have a cohesive look. And so it's still an ongoing collection that I like to build. So one thing that people ask me all the time is, what are you going to do when you have an earthquake or a tornado, and because you have so many breakable things? And so one of the things that I would grab if I'm taking shelter in a tornado is this lamp. This is an Ozark pottery piece that is fashioned into a lamp, and it's one of only two that those of us who collect this pottery have really ever seen or heard of. I think the other one is in a museum somewhere. But one of my Instagram friends who lived in Missouri, in fact in Hollister where the pottery originated, and collected and sold the pottery for years, found this lamp and acquired it. And then I had asked her if she ever decided to sell it, that I would love to buy it, and she eventually did that. And so it's kind of a prized possession. So it's one of, as I said, of just only two that we've ever seen. Probably the number one reaction I get when people come in is, oh wow, which kind of makes me happy because I want them to see things that maybe they've never seen before, and a way of decorating that's a little unusual and maybe a little impractical, but really just for fun.
Oh, why hello. I've been waiting for you. Come on in. My name is James Kivior, and this is my 600 square foot Ridgewood apartment. Right now we are in my kitchen, which is the main room of my apartment. I am what you would call a maximalist, so more is my favorite. As you can see in this kitchen, probably the thing that stands out the most is this wallpaper. This is actually Fornasetti wallpaper. It's the blood orange collection, which is one of my favorites. I personally love Fornasetti. He's an Italian artist. I love fragrances. I think it's not just important that when you come in, the home looks beautiful, but the home should smell really pretty as well. So I always like to keep things like a room diffuser, like right at the entrance. This is one of my current favorites. It's from a French brand. And this is like a tomato wine, which is like perfect when you walk into a kitchen. It gives you that kind of kitcheny smell. And this is the first room you walk into, so it has a pop to it when you come in. It just kind of gives you that, whoa, this is really fun. What's going on in the rest of the apartment type of feel. This is an Italian Labarge etagere. When you live in New York City, you don't really get a lot of storage. So this holds a lot of important things for me in the kitchen area, between my microwave and all of my like pots and things like that, my ceramics that I like to collect. I really love anything that kind of glows in the light. So I love anything gold or brass. I'm kind of like a raccoon. I like sparkly, shiny things. I actually do a lot of my work sitting here, so I needed to have like something very comfy and cozy. It's kind of a gathering area as well. So I love animal print. This is a beautiful silk tiger velvet from Scalamandre. I love Scalamandre, is one of my favorite textile houses. I cover everything in this fabric. It gives a nice pop when you come in, but it's a neutral, right, as all animal prints are. So it kind of like works with everything. It kind of pulls everything together. One thing to really like highlight that I really love, every year I like to treat myself to something special. And I had these custom Roman shades made using an air and water fabric. So it's a beautiful, again, Italian velvet. And I find like it just kind of pulls everything together. It's kind of like a cherry red velvet. Let me show you over here to this area. You probably hear me constantly say that like everything in my home is from Italy. And it's true. Like, I don't know why. I'm not Italian. I'm a boy born in Queens. The style just really resonates with me. I really love it. Lastly, as you can see here, this is my friend Apollo. One of the things that annoys me the most in my apartment is that I have window air conditioners. I just think they're such an eyesore. So I wanted something that kind of blocked the AC unit. I bought a whole bunch of seashells and red coral and malachite and things like that. And I just spent like a couple hours sitting right here with a hot glue gun, and I just kind of made like a cute little band for him. He's nice. He kind of greets you when you walk right into the apartment. All right, guys. So follow me into the next room, my favorite room, which is my living room. Well, welcome to my living room. This is my maximalist living room. I personally feel like this room is describes me at the most as a maximalist. More is more, of course. I always love to sit here and have an Aperol spritz. When designing this room, I really love to layer lots of different fabrics and textures. Obviously, as you can tell, I love the color red. Lots of pops of red throughout this living room. It's just like a really nice space. People really like to come in and just relax and have a drink and chat. There's no TV in here. So it's really more of a kind of a socializing room. It's not for everybody. I kind of want to have like unique things. I love things that are older. I love things that tell a story. I also don't want to have things that really date my home, right? So in this room, you wouldn't really know what decade you're in if you took a photo of it. This is my cat, Otis. He's about 13 years old now. I got him when I first moved into the apartment. He is, well, he's a very clean cat, as you can see. In a room like this that has so much going on, there are certain elements in here, certain pieces that really pop out. The first one here, that's a real standout for me, is this beautiful ebonized desk that I have. So this was actually my closet, and I popped the doors off, painted it all out, and I created my cabinet of curiosity. So it's like a Wunderkammer kind of thing. This is kind of an area where you could just kind of keep coming back and looking and finding something cool to look at, which is what I love. This is Gus, my zebra. And then I have one of my favorite pieces, which is a golden macaw. Most people might have like, you know, a cleaner or whatever. I have a taxidermist. So I have a taxidermist, I have an upholsterer. Those are the people I have on my speed dial. As someone that collects taxidermy, you know, there is belief in collecting taxidermy. I personally do not believe in harming or hunting an animal. All the pieces that I have been around for over 100 years, and even though some have been hunted, I really believe in, you know, paying tribute to them and not letting something that's 100 years old just get thrown into the trash or whatnot. I'm very ethical with my collection. So from my beautiful taxidermy to kind of where James and maximalism really started, this is my wall of framed Hermes scarves. They're kind of expensive to purchase, and they're also expensive to professionally frame. So it took some time. It probably took me about a year or so of collecting. I kind of hung them myself. I really should have paid to have a professional install them for me because they're a little wonky here and there. And then from the wall, I needed to have a really good sofa, of course, to go up against it. So I actually had this sofa custom made. When designing the sofa, I wanted to definitely have some kind of trim. So this is a Schumacher trim. It was from Mary McDonald, who's a really great interior designer. So as you know, I love taxidermy, I love Hermes scarves, but what I love most is this piece here. This is actually an abalone chandelier from Tony Duquette. It's not the original abalone chandelier. So just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, I bought these pretty little Chinese tassels and I added them onto it. And then also, I have these gorgeous coral and gold l'objet napkin rings, and I just wanted to embellish the chandelier more. So I just add them onto the chandelier, and what's nice is when I need to use them, I know exactly where they are, and I just come in here and I pick them right off. I just kind of hang them from there. And that is my abalone chandelier. So this is one of my other favorite taxidermy pieces. This is Crystal Connors, and she's one of my first pieces that I ever bought. She kind of moves around the living room, so she'll be in different places depending on what her mood is. But follow me and Crystal into the next room. So this here is my transition room. It's my guest room. It's kind of my TV room. It's where a lot of people will come and kind of gather here on this day bed and watch TV. In this room itself, I covered the walls in the Fornasetti malachite wallpaper. The ceiling is done in a House of Hackney wallpaper, so it's their cheetah print. And I think one of the standout pieces in this room is just the whole bed itself. So I love red, as you guys know already. And this is like the red bed. So I had this old antique day bed fully upholstered in a beautiful old red velvet. Then I had my upholsterer make some beautiful red velvet bolsters for me. I love an old grandma Italian blanket. So this is an old satin Nona blanket, Italian grandma blanket. I love my leopard print pillows, as you guys know already. And this is a really beautiful old antique, these are French curtain panels from like the 1800s. So I had them installed over the bed as a bed crown. What is really worth upholstering and when do you move away from something? So I honestly find that even some of the ugliest pieces of furniture can really be brought back to life with good reupholstering. Gotta have mirrors in small rooms with bad lighting. This mirror kind of bounces the light off a little bit, kind of opens it up in here a bit. I absolutely love this chandelier. So this is, it's an old chandelier. I think it's from the 1920s. It's a really pretty ruby red, and it's from India. It's very hard to dust because there's a lot of little sharp pieces on here, but it really gives that nice red glow, which I really love. Gotta have a Gucci pillow, right? It's one of my favorite pieces here. So I love this little guy here, it's a Gucci pillow. Now let me show you the final room in my apartment. And that is my bedroom. And so welcome to the final room of my apartment. This is my bedroom. This is the largest room in the apartment. It gets the best light. And when I was designing this room, this is actually the last room that I designed, I kind of went in a different direction. I decided to go more orange, black, and white. So I went with a marigold paint from Benjamin Moore. This is my cat Mushroom, by the way. I totally forgot about her. I just saw her now. And this is technically her bed. So she owns this area here. Speaking of the bed, it's very hard to ever be able to have a bedroom large enough in New York City to have a king-size bed. So I'm very fortunate that I have that space, that I could have a giant bed in here. Clearly, I love a lot of pillows. So these are all Fret and Fortuny pillows and things like that. So this is also Bevilacqua fabric as well as Bevilacqua pillows. I recently had this whole bed crown installed here just to kind of give a little more drama to the room. The ceilings are very high in this apartment. They're about 11 foot. So I find that having this from floor to ceiling just gives more of that height. Moving over to here, this is an old Italian chair. It's a Savonarola chair. This is, again, Italian from the 60s, but it's this cute little rug with leopard on it. And when I bought it, I thought it was larger. So when it arrived, it's this little tiny guy. And so I just ended up draping it over the chair. Kind of works really well to give a little pattern and things like that. So this area over here is where my TV is. As far as TVs go, I like them to be very small and out of the way and kind of hidden. But what I have to talk to you about is this amazing lampshade that I have here. I know I've been saying this a lot, but this is also from Italy from the 1960s as well. I needed a really big piece to kind of fill out this area. And I found a pair of these on eBay. And so I had to have them. Just kind of gives a little something extra to this room. It's a very unique lampshade, and I have it partnered with the Ugo Zaccagnini lamp. They kind of work well together. You've seen my bedroom, you've seen my whole apartment. It's been lovely having you, but HGTV, I'm getting tired, so I'm gonna say goodbye. I'm gonna finish my Aperol Spritz, and I think I'm gonna take a little nap. Thank you.
I wanna dream like a drum, like a gong ding bong. Everybody sing along, gonna crash like a mighty wave.
Hi HGTV, welcome to our home.
Come on in.
So this is the foyer. This is the main entrance to the home. We have 2 sets of double doors behind you. And then you can see the grand staircase here. It's obviously all original. It's been restored. This took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to bring back to what it looks like today. We bleached all the pine floors. They're original. If you look at this space, this is what kind of represents what the rest of the house looks like.
So the Iron Victorian is what we named the house. It's built in 1869. Basically the original owner of the house, his name is George Greenaway, and he was a blacksmith. And so the word iron comes from his work doing iron work, and obviously this home is Victorian style. And it's funny now, it's like people in town are like, oh, there's the Iron Victorian. Like we are the Iron Victorian.
Yeah, we don't have names anymore.
Yeah, we don't have a name, so we're just the Iron Victorian, which is great.
Right off of the foyer is the living room, and this is really the heart of our home. This is where we spend most of our time. Usually you can find this space filled with toys and games and all kinds of stuff. This is where we just live. So the sofas were recovered with a leather that is stain-proof resistant, and so we did a lot of testing. We did wine, mustard, grape juice, and it all wipes up. Even some pen was easy to get off. You know, people are like, oh my gosh, your furniture is like, it's white and we can't sit on it, and you can do anything on this. We have the stone fireplace here. This is original, and actually, when we bought the house, this was painted. It was painted tan, which is so sad because we didn't realize what even it was. And so when we were restoring the floors in here, Michael, my husband, was like, oh my gosh, Christy, this is stone. And he started uncovering that this was marble down here. And so this took forever, but so worth it because it's a showpiece in here. And then of course the frame TV. So we bought the TV and the frames are like $600 or something. And Michael's like, there's no way I can make that and I can make it better than you can buy it. So he DIY'd that and painted it gold and, you know, added a bunch of patina on it to make it feel, you know, authentic to the space. And then also, obviously, there's 5 floor-to-ceiling windows in this space, which just bring in so much natural light. So we hardly have the light on in here. It's just so bright and light, and it's nice to see the yard and the gardens from this room as well. So this is our dining space, and believe it or not, we actually do eat in here. We have a marble table here that we got secondhand, and a little bit of a modern flair with the black and white striped chairs. The showpiece, obviously, in the room is this beautiful chandelier. Also came secondhand for $200. And then all the architectural elements, right? So when we first looked at this house, we realized very quickly that this house had it all still here. Original doors, original molding, original flooring, the ceiling medallions, it was all still here. It needed love in every single corner, but the original details were here, and that's what spoke to us. So all of the stuff that was sort of done over the years, we removed and peeled it back to its like original format. This is all wood, original molding. The flooring in here is so beautiful. It's got like a striped pattern to it. We exposed some brick when we first started to renovate the house, just as like a fun way to show some original detail also. Okay, so here we are in the kitchen, and this room is actually probably my favorite. Yes, we use it every day, and it's, you know, another one of those heart of the home type rooms, but this one I love because this embodies everything that we believe. We believe that you can make any space beautiful with any budget. You don't have to do a full gut redo every single time in every single room. This is exactly what we did here. So we took what was here and tried to do our best to make it pretty where we could live and love it for a while. So these cabinets were here, we painted them white, changed out the hardware, we did some new appliances, and then, you know, secondhand finds, right? So this is an actual library table from France that we found secondhand. And then, of course, we always have to do something a little bit different. And so we hung all of these dried flowers, and these are all grown from either our garden or Michael's mom's garden. And so we replace them like once a year just to keep their vibrancy, but it's just a super fun way to bring the outdoors in, which we always like to do.
One other really fun aspect is this headboard here. So this was a headboard that was broken. It's a Victorian style headboard, and Michael had the idea to make a vent hood out of it. So DIY'd that baby up. But then my favorite is the cabbageware collection over here. So this is sort of a mix of old and new. I have a lot of secondhand finds, some new finds. I have all different brands of cabbageware. This is definitely something that will always be here. I keep it out year round. We use it, we love it. Love the green pop too in the kitchen. So this is our main floor bathroom, and actually the only bathroom with running water in the house. This is where we all bathe. This is where everybody does everything. This was the first room that we renovated when we got the house, because when we bought it, there was nowhere to go to the bathroom. So we knew right off the bat we had to get a bathroom up and running. And we found this original marble top in the carriage house attic. And originally it wouldn't have been used as a sink because there wasn't running water at that time, but they used it as like a wash space where they had like a rag, and this would be like in their bedrooms. We took another Victorian headboard, turned it upside down, and made a vanity here that sort of fit with the space. We have the floral wallpaper, the bowood pattern, and we restored a clawfoot tub. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this big house and you have this little bathroom. Yes, it's a pain point, but right now it works. It's what we have. So it beats the heck out of, though, when we first got the house, there was a basement shower, and we did go down into the basement and there were shower shoes involved. It was like camping. And it's a story that we tell everybody because people think it's always glamorous, but when you're restoring, renovating, especially an old place, it's not always what you think.
Upstairs is not quite finished yet. The foyer, as you can see, I only painted up as high as I could reach, and you can't see that from downstairs, so I thought it was cool. We still have to do our primary bedroom, our bathroom, and our closet, but what I can show you is our son's room and our brand new nursery. This is our son's room. We were super excited to do this room. Obviously, it's a very special thing. He was our first baby. So I'm gonna just go ahead and address the balloon in the room. This hot air balloon, we were looking for baskets. We were looking for maybe even a real hot air balloon, but they're way too big, obviously, to fit in a house. So I actually made this basket. I hand wove this basket, and then this is made out of PVC that I just bent and formed and then hot glued fabric to it. And then this is actually really special too. My mom restored this, but this was hers as a kid. So she got this for Lincoln and painted it. It was red, which didn't go with the house, so she knew we'd want it painted white, and it goes really great in here, obviously. We just added his big boy bed, got rid of the crib, which we were sad about, but it was time. We went with a Victorian headboard. Obviously, it fits the house. Really, most of this room is a lot of old things, not a ton of modern, so we thought, the light should be modern. And it kind of goes with the hot air balloon. It's kind of the same shape, so we love that. This is going to be the new baby's room. This room was a disaster when we got the house. It was a purple bathroom. All the molding was all ripped out at some point, so that's when we went with the coppered ceiling. I am awful at math, so this was really interesting to figure out, but it turned out really well. So behind me is a little mini motorcycle that we bought online, and then it wasn't quite right, so I actually changed a bunch of different things on it. I painted this motorcycle. This was something that I definitely had to fight for and negotiate for, but Christy absolutely loves it now. The room was feeling really elegant and beautiful, which is great, but it also didn't quite feel like a little boy's room. So we actually wanted to add this kind of industrial partition, expose the brick, so it kind of felt a little more like a loft, kind of like a masculine feel, but then has a little bit of whimsical touch for a nursery. If we have another baby, I don't know, we'll have to come up with something big. Maybe you'll just like have a car bed, but like maybe a real car bed. One of our favorite spaces is actually outside the house. We love being in our gardens, and we're outside as much as we possibly can.
This is our raised planter garden, and these garden boxes were made by Michael. So these were made
DIY style, and we wanted them to look like a French sort of planter, not just a regular raised garden bed. So you'll see they have a lot of extra details on them. They have the brass lions and then the brass strapping, just to give them a little bit something extra special, something a little bit different. This side, aside from these roses, is our cut flower bed. And so we use these, we hang these from the kitchen ceiling or to make flower arrangements with. This didn't all come at once. So the first year that we decided to add these raised beds, we did 2 beds. The next year we added 2 more, and the next year we added another 2. So sometimes it's easier just to like add as you go, and that's kind of what we've done here. So this is our greenhouse, and this actually functions as a working greenhouse most months out of the year. And this space we put together to feel like old world, Victorian style. We installed a marble paver floor, and then we just have like all of these patinaed pots with various kinds of plants. This is just a space that we really love to come enjoy, have a cup of coffee.
Thanks for checking out the Iron Victorian.
You are welcome here anytime.
I really like to take traditional like styling of objects, then add something that's kind of wacky to it. I don't take myself too seriously. I feel the happiest when I see beautiful things around me, and I want a lot of beautiful things. Hi, I'm Erika, and this is my HGTV home tour in York, Pennsylvania. So I am from West Virginia, and I was surrounded by very strong, hardworking women, and I wanted to create something to honor them. Originally, I had found some really beautiful vintage printed wallpaper. So it has all of these different scenes of, people typically outside doing things. And while they were beautiful, they didn't really, resonate with me personally. So I decided to create one. I found Rachel Ettinger, and she was ecstatic over the idea of the project. She has as much love for Appalachian culture as I do. I really wanted the wallpaper to look kind of like a quilt on the wall. Each scene is something that was based off of my childhood. For example, there's one where it's like they're in the water. That is a picture of the swimming hole that I was baptized in. Or this one right here, this is gardening, which is something I did almost every single day with my grandmother growing up. It's like the ultimate kind of coming home to myself, because where I'm from, it's very, very beautiful. It's like heaven on earth in certain places. So I made the wallpaper as kind of a love letter to Appalachian women. It's a beautiful daily reminder to keep pursuing my dreams, because they were not afforded the same type of opportunities. I've always been this way. I can remember being 4 years old and going to someone's house and seeing kind of like a cow print ottoman. I still like cow print ottomans. Like, I just have distinct memories of design. And so as I've gotten a little older, gotten more confident, things have gotten more colorful. And I've been more experimental with things. This is a good reflection of where I am, like within personal growth. I've seen several photos where they have sconces hung above their couch, and I think that it looks super cozy. And also we have a smaller space, so we don't have a ton of room for, side tables and lamps and whatnot. So I got these, they're brass. They're very heavy, and this is like mirrored. I got these at Second Chance in Baltimore, and I believe that they are over 100 years old, but I did rewire them to make them plug-in sconces. One thing that I like to do, especially in rooms where I have tons of color, is to incorporate natural elements, such as like this jute rug. And then we have a rattan rocking chair. I'm not a huge like brown wood fan, so I try to incorporate it in other ways. So here's the fireplace. This is not original to the home, and I do think that it's too big. So I kind of try to camouflage it as much as possible by kind of color washing it, kind of making it kind of sink in. And I had my husband add these wood pieces to kind of give the optical illusion that it was a little skinnier than what it actually is. I'm a big Christmas fan, and this is a vintage Avon bottle that is, it looks like a vintage indent ornament. Another theme, I guess, that I have is cupids or little cherubs. So I have them here on this Italian fishbowl planter, and we have the two little Cupid shelves. I got those for like $1. I really wanted the space to feel very cozy. I do have 3 kids, so I can't have anything too precious in this house. I wanted it to feel like somewhere that we could snuggle up and watch a movie together. And it is so fun to see my kids like picking themselves out in the wallpaper pattern, picking out the different little elements of where I come from. So that was the living room. Come with me into the dining room and kitchen area. When we first bought the house, this was an entirely separate space from the kitchen. Right here where I'm standing was where the wall originally was that we tore down. There were like these little weird, I don't know, saloon doors that went into the dining room that made no sense. We decided to open this up and put in kind of like a little peninsula island so we could have some additional seating. So I think everything in this space was thrifted. I know I got the table on Facebook Marketplace for $65 and the chairs Facebook Marketplace and the rug on Facebook Marketplace for $35. So you can decorate well on a budget because I do it all the time. I try to be as thrifty as possible. It started out because I couldn't afford to buy anything new. But now, like, you know, I really care about the environment and old stuff is cooler. So these cabinets we bought secondhand. We actually went and bought an entire kitchen of used cabinets and the price was crazy affordable. These are really, really good quality custom cabinets too. They're all solid wood. My husband cut the backs off of them and then modified them to be the right depth. And this is gonna add so much storage for like board games, kids' craft supplies, all the things that were like overflowing the tiny little cabinet we had here previously. This is the window seat. I love this window seat. This is original to the house. I wanted to use this as extra seating for when we dine. So I covered the cushions with really durable fabric. One of the reasons I went with yellow for this space was because it reminded me of kind of like a 90s country farmhouse feel. If you look back at magazines, there's like a lot of warm tones. When I met my husband, he was in the process of buying this house already. It was in rough shape. There was like a drop tile ceilings, and underneath of that was just like a completely crumbling plaster ceiling. So we took all of that out and the mess, I mean, I'm talking like a foot of just debris. The whole time we've lived here, it's been a renovation process, except for with one bedroom. We've touched everything in this house. Everything has been changed. So welcome to the kitchen. I don't think that there are a ton of rules when it comes to homes, but I like for kitchens to be timeless. I do love like the mid-century modern type of vibe, but I really like the like 1920s, 1930s, which this house kind of, you know, fits. So I knew that I wanted shaker cabinets and an apron sink. So we decided to go with soapstone. We bought it from a discount supplier and it looks great. This is the sink that we put in during the OG renovation 11 years ago, and I still love it. It's my favorite. We did replace the faucet. We went with an unlacquered brass, and I did remove the butt doors underneath here to kind of make a little cutesy vibe with the gingham vintage curtains. These are the cabinets that we put in 10 years ago. I still love them. This is the hardware that we got back then. This is, you know, time period, classic, timeless. This is an Art Deco. This was actually the top. There was a bottom that came with it, but it no longer fits the space. But I wanted to keep it because it reminds me of like a coffin. So I am gonna put my spices and loose teas in here. This is antique Vaseline glass here on the pendant lights. And this light over here, my daughter told me, reminded her something that would be in my grandma's house, which that's the whole point. I like to incorporate some things that are kind of tacky almost, like kind of like toe the line to keep things fun and not so serious. So we have the Kit Kat clock, and I found these vintage curtains on Etsy. They were really, really cheap, and I think that it's just a nice surprise. I like to do things that are unexpected. This was secondhand. I've always wanted a retro looking refrigerator, and this is a big chill fridge that we found on Facebook Marketplace for like a quarter of the price that they are new. So we went and got that. I wanted the kitchen to feel like a place that you're gonna come home and there's gonna be like a cozy home cooked meal waiting for you, or cookies, or making cookies with your children. So that was the kitchen, and let's go see what we've done upstairs. My dream bathroom is one of those vintage bathrooms that has the colored tile, and I love when they have different color tile around the doorway and around the perimeter. So I tried to emulate that effect because I know that sourcing vintage tile is difficult and time consuming, and it would break my heart to know that someone rips it out in the future. Because we have a pedestal sink, we don't have much storage, and 5 of us share this bathroom. So I found this on Facebook Marketplace, and it came from a hospital. I believe this was from the early 1900s, and it's super heavy, super sharp. My husband and I like tore the ceiling up on the stairs, bringing it up here. So he cut out part of the windowsill and secured it to the wall, so this will have to stay here forever. I do like to add something kitschy to every room, so I found these adorable little fish in bubbles on Facebook Marketplace. So that's our cozy bathroom, and now let's go to the bedroom. Welcome to my bedroom. I call this the Pink Palace. I added this really cool canopy. These are just plain curtains that I got on Amazon, and I did cut them and layer them. I added 3 layers of these tassels and the velvet ribbon to kind of create like a stripe effect. I also added velvet ribbon to this vintage headboard that I got to kind of make it feel a little more punchy. I got the inspiration for the canopy on Pinterest when I was looking at English cottage homes, except for they were a lot more grand, so I kind of try to keep things a little more casual. This is not vintage chenille, this was gifted to me, but it is super cozy, and I love that it reminds me of staying at my grandma's house. This quilt, you would not believe how hard it is to find a pink floral quilt that's not $200. So I got this on Amazon and I dyed it with Rit dye. So the chandelier I made about 5 years ago. I drew inspiration from the fringe chandeliers from the 1960s, and I wanted to incorporate pattern on mine versus being a solid color. So I ordered plain organic cotton fringe so that I could dye it myself and, you know, create my own formulas. And so I did all of that and hand cut everything. We used real unlacquered brass. So one of the things about having like a pink palace bedroom is having a glamorous vanity to sit at and do your makeup. And I've always wanted one. My great grandma had one when I was growing up, and I would always play in her makeup. So I finally got one at 32. I got this for $100 and fully worth it. It's like, I love how the mirror is so big. And I found this little ottoman, like footstool, on Facebook Marketplace, and actually my grandparents had the same one when I was a kid. I found this weird little chair at a consignment store, and then I just recovered it with this really beautiful poppy block print fabric. Growing up, I really loved the show Gilmore Girls, and there is one scene in one episode where it's like a dream scene, and in this dream she has this Hello Kitty alarm clock, and I've wanted it since I've been 12 years old. So I bought it for myself on eBay a couple months ago. So these mirrors are actually plastic. I got them on Facebook Marketplace, and they were like really ugly, brown, very cheap looking. So I covered them with Rub and Buff, and I think it gives off kind of a swanky Hollywood Regency vibe into the room. One of my favorite things to do is to take something that's really affordable and accessible and to make it look like something that's very elevated and expensive. I really love this room because of the feminine nature. I've always loved pink and been very girly, but I've also been kind of judged for being like that. And I fully just let myself go wild and lean into that side of myself in here. I'm not sure what my style is. It's very eclectic, obviously, very maximalist. I like to have a lot of things. I hope that I inspire other people to be more daring and to do more fun things in their home. I would sum up my redesign as coming home to myself. I think that I really tried to things that I loved as a child and honor my culture, honor my heritage. I think that that's really important. At least for me, it's really important. No one's house should look the same because no one else is you.